Anxiety generally will peak in the late springtime, and my sponsor, BetterHelp, can connect you with a therapist that will help. The majority of BetterHelp members seek help for anxiety, and 69% of members report better anxiety symptoms after just 6 weeks on therapy with BetterHelp. It's easy to start. Just fill out a questionnaire, and you will match with a therapist in as little as a couple of days. You can easily switch therapists anytime, and there's no extra cost if it's not the right fit. BetterHelp carefully make sure all therapists on the platform are licensed, and their customer support team is there to help you in case you have any questions. With over 7,000 reviews and a 4.3 rating on Trustpilot, BetterHelp is simply a platform you can trust. I want you to let BetterHelp help rule your anxiety so your anxiety does not rule you. Go to betterhelp.com/Chael. That's going to get you 10% off your first month of help. betterhelp.com/Chael. Or I made it even easier. You can just click the link below. Goggins, Adesanya, these guys teamed up, and it was quick. I just saw a clip. I don't know what the backstory is. I watched this clip. They're working out. I've seen a lot of David Goggins stuff, and I watched when David Goggins was training Tony Ferguson, and so maybe I took some of those ideas. But the clip that I see is Adesanya throwing up, and it would lead you to believe that Goggins him. Worked his ass off, right? Very likely what happened. But not necessarily. I want to talk about this real briefly. Because if you are a top guy and you lose your spot, you are never going to get the spot back unless you go in to a vision quest and you go work harder than you have ever worked. But that's an impossibility to believe. I mean, if you were a top guy, you're Israel Adesanya, you're beating Anderson Silva, you're selling out Madison Square Garden, you're knocking out Alex Pereira. You're getting fight of the night, you're getting fight of the year, you've done everything. How can I then believe that there's an ability for you to work harder? Maybe there is, but how do I believe that? I have to assume when you were king of the world that you had topped out your effort scale. But if I'm wrong, that is the one exception. I mean, mark my words. I want to say it again. If you were a top guy and you lose your spot, and it wouldn't matter, 1 to 3, 2 to 6, 4 to 7, it wouldn't matter. You will never get that spot back. Unless you can find a way to work harder than you've ever worked before. But you see the problem with that. Like, that isn't just, all right, a dedication, I'm going to focus on, I'm going to go in and do it. It's not like that. There's only so many hours in the day. There's only so much effort. It's a very hard thing to buckle down and say, all right, I'm serious now. You would have had to have been pretty damn serious, and not just for a training camp, for an entire life, to have got to where Izzy got in the first place. But I want to bring this to your attention now. Hold that thought. Move it over to Chael growing up, summer camps right here in Oregon. When you could sign up for camps in Oregon, there was 2 difference, and you checked a box. And you mailed it in, and when you showed up, here was the guys for the intensive camp, here was the guys for the technique camp. And I went with my buddy Kevin. My buddy Kevin, my buddy Dax, and we go down for the technique camp. It's summertime. We were kids. We were 11 years old. But we were old enough to know we don't need an intensive camp in July, because the next wrestling match is mid-November. Like to go to a camp and check into the dorms and be away from your families and sacrifice to do all that great stuff, to go get into really good shape in July, would have absolutely no purpose when the next wrestling match is in November. Whatever shape you got, you would lose it. And then in Oregon, even moreover than that, there wasn't practice. So let's just say that in July, you go do the intensive camp, you get in really good shape. You're running, you're sprinting, you're doing the ropes. I mean, all the stuff you see on TV, and you go get
buckle down, you get in this really good shape. You move away from your mom and dad, all you do, 4 times a day, you're a trainer, you're going to go get in really good shape. When you come home from that, you don't then have a practice to go to. If you did, you might be able to maintain some of that level of conditioning. But when you go home and you sit on the couch and you go take 2 and 3 months off, you will not only lose some of it, you will lose all of it. That entire intensive camp that you went and did for the sake of the intensity, you will lose 100% of it. Meanwhile, me, Kevin, Dax, we go sign up for the technique camp. And frankly, we had a really good time. Counselors were nice to us. I learned an inside trip from Chuck Kearney, learned a Metzger, scored a whole bunch of points the rest of my career with both of those moves. I knew a leg lace, but I was shown when he defends the leg lace how to defend his defense, which is another technique on top. I used and scored a whole bunch of points through my career. And I was surprised when Dax and Kevin and I, amongst the other campers there, got teased by the intensive campers. They started yelling to us one day. They were yelling what wimps we were. We're looking around. Who are these guys talking to? We realized they were talking to us. And we said, why? We didn't understand why. And they said, well, you signed up for technique. Why didn't you sign up for intensive? And we were just kids, but we're thinking, because there's no reason to get in shape right now. Looks really hard. Your camp is a much harder experience. We're having fun over here. Food's great, weather's great, technique's great. We're having a good time. Staying up late and we're playing cards. We're having a great time. We're out of the house. Call mom and dad every day between 5 and 5:30. I mean, we're having a great time. You guys, this is grueling. And they were deeming themselves tougher. Now, I will just tell you in all fairness, we went from 11 to 12 to 13, 14, 15. All of a sudden, we're 18. Dax, Division I wrestler, Boise State. Kevin and I, teammates, University of Oregon, all Division I. And those guys that were the intense campers, I never saw them again. Not a single one of them. And does that make us right or make them wrong? Yeah, as a matter of fact, it does. They were dum-dums. There was absolutely no you got to know when to use it. Now, if you ever meet a guy that tells you, work smarter, not harder, you've met a con man and you've met a loser. And there's a lot of them, and they look good. They all look the part, and they all got the same secret, which is they shoot steroids in their ass, but then tell their clients that they got diets and answers, and they got this secret, and you come with me. They all are the same. However, there is a time to be smarter, because you got to understand it's the same effort. If you have this much effort, it does matter where you apply it. A training camp in MMA is code for I'm leaving my wife and kids and I'm meeting my mistress at a different location. But there is something to the theory of packing a level of intensity into a certain period, just like cramming for a test. You can expand that stuff, and when the day comes, maybe you're going to know it, maybe you're not, or you can cram and it's fresh and it comes and you can write down the right answers. I'm just sharing for you. And this whole thing has to do with Izzy throwing up in a bucket, because there's only 2 ways that we got there. Now, Izzy throwing up in a bucket, which we're all going to be led to believe is because Goggins him. Worked him as hard as he's ever worked and led him to vomit. To vomit for a world-class athlete is beyond a rare thing to do, but it can definitely happen. And maybe it's because Izzy found an exercise or a way of exercising that pushed him to a new level. Maybe. But there's also a situation where Izzy wasn't in very good shape. He hadn't been training all that hard. He comes into Goggins, who doesn't know those things, and Goggins him. In which case, you could get a guy to throw up very quickly. In fact, you wouldn't even have to work a guy very hard, retrospective to how hard a guy is used to working. If he hasn't been trained, he comes in and his body's a little bit cold, you could get him to throw up in what may constitute a warm-up in a normal situation. But you could max that guy out, right? Like, it is a car that you've got to warm up, and you don't warm it up in 10 and 15 minutes. It warms up over 3 and 4 weeks. First 2-3 weeks of your training camp, you're getting ready to get ready. So I'm only sharing for you that I'm not certain what we were looking at, and parts of it did bother me. If Izzy simply wasn't ready and he was overworked to the point that it led him to throw up, this would be a very normal thing, and there's nothing to see here. If Izzy's in shape and he's training and he goes to Goggins and goes to that level without having a fight booked, I don't want to go as far as to say it's a waste of time. Working hard, this is good stuff, and it can be parlayed. And if you leave from there right into something else and you keep that and you start your base, I'm very open to it. But what I'm not open to is much like the guys that signed up for the intensive camp and in the middle of July want to go run 10 miles of sprints and be fit and look beautiful with their shirts off just to go home and sit on their ass for 5 months and lose all of it. All of it. Except they're not going to lose the wear and tear on their hip. They're not going to wear and tear on their cartilage. They're not going to use the wear and tear on their knee and their shoulder and their back and their neck. That's going to stay with them. So train smarter, not harder, is what losers say. But there is a time, and the smart part comes from the hard training at the right time. And in the middle of April, with a fight not booked, is not the right time.